Have you ever been in a heat wave when the power suddenly cuts out? The hum of the AC dies and your house starts to feel like a hot box. It's crazy to think that in that moment you're probably more helpless against the heat than someone who lived 1,000 years ago. It's a strange thought, isn't it? We have all this amazing technology, but our comfort is totally dependent on an electric grid that can fail. Our medieval ancestors, on the other hand, had what we might think of as primitive solutions. But what if I told you those solutions were actually ingenious, time-tested systems that kept them cool for centuries without using a single watt of electricity? We've been sold this idea that our modern, electrified life is better in every way. But as our climate gets more extreme and energy costs go up, we're starting to see how fragile our system really is. It turns out people in the Middle Ages built homes, created habits, and used technologies that didn't just help them survive the heat, but actually live comfortably in it. We're going to break down 5 key ideas from medieval cooling wisdom. Each one is a practical lesson you can actually use today, especially when your 21st century tech fails you. It's pretty amazing because you start to realize that before we had thermostats, we had some serious ingenuity. And that same ingenuity can still keep you cool today. And stay until the end, because in this video you will learn how to build a medieval-inspired cooling system that combines ancient evaporative principles with modern materials to create a DIY air conditioner that can drop your room temperature by 20 degrees Celsius. Using just a bucket, some ice, and about $50 worth of parts. From medieval castles to desert domes. So let's start with the most obvious thing, their buildings. Your modern home, with its timber frame and drywall, heats up really fast in a heat wave. But medieval people and traditional builders around the world had a completely different approach. They built what I call thermal fortresses. The first and most important principle they used was something called thermal mass. Think about the thick stone walls of a European castle or monastery. Those walls, sometimes 2 or 3 feet thick, weren't just for defense. They were the original air conditioning system. But here's what's really fascinating. This same principle was discovered independently by builders all over the hot parts of the world. In the deserts of Mexico, North Africa, and the Middle East, they took thermal mass one step further and created something even more ingenious, the dome house. These aren't just pretty architectural features. Scientists are only now starting to understand how brilliantly these domes actually work. The curved shape does something remarkable to airflow. As wind hits the dome, it speeds up as it flows over the curved surface. This creates what engineers call enhanced convection. Basically, the dome shape forces the wind to suck heat away from the building more efficiently than a flat roof ever could. But the real genius is in the details. In Mexico's Sonoran Desert, literally one of the hottest places on Earth, they build these dome houses that stay 20 to 25 degrees cooler than the outside temperature, with zero electricity. I'm talking about places where ground temperatures hit 177 degrees Fahrenheit, and inside these domes, it's a comfortable 75 degrees. How do they do it? First, they use thick clay brick walls with high thermal mass, just like those medieval castle walls. The clay absorbs heat incredibly slowly, so by the time any heat starts to penetrate the wall, the sun has already set, and the outside air is cooling down. Second, they paint everything white, and I mean everything. The entire dome, inside and out, gets multiple coats of white plaster. This isn't just for looks. White reflects up to 90% of the sun's heat, while dark colours absorb it. Medieval builders in hot climates figured this out centuries ago. A white building can be 20 degrees cooler than an identical black building on the same day. Third, and this is where it gets really clever, they put a hole at the very top of the dome called an oculus. As the dome heats up during the day, hot air inside rises and escapes through this hole. This creates a natural suction effect that pulls cooler air in through windows and doors at ground level. It's like a passive chimney that runs all day long, powered by nothing but the sun itself. The medieval wind catchers I mentioned earlier work on the exact same principle, just with a different shape. Whether it's a square tower in Spain or a curved dome in Mexico, they're all using the same physics. Hot air rises, cool air falls, and smart design can turn that into a natural ventilation system. What's really mind-blowing is that modern scientists are now studying these ancient domes and discovering they're 30 to 40% more energy efficient than conventional flat-roof buildings. We're talking about technology that's been perfected over centuries, and we're just now catching up with the science to understand why it works so well. The modern takeaway. Obviously, you're probably not going to build a dome house in your backyard, but you can steal their strategies. Paint your roof white. It's one of the cheapest and most effective cooling upgrades you can make. If you're planning any home improvements, think about thermal mass. That tile floor might cost more up front, but it'll stay cool underfoot all summer. And pay attention to air movement in your house. Even a small fan positioned to pull hot air up and out of your living space can make a huge difference. These aren't just historical curiosities. They're proven technologies that work just as well today as they did 1,000 years ago. Mastering strategic ventilation. Our ancestors understood something that we, in our sealed-up houses, have kind of forgotten. Air moves in predictable ways. If you understand those movements, you can use them to cool your house for free. They didn't just open a window and hope for a breeze. They engineered it. The most basic method was cross-ventilation. By placing small windows or doors on opposite sides of a room, they created a natural wind tunnel that would pull fresh air through the space, pushing hot, stale air out. But their real genius was in using something called the stack effect. It's a simple fact of physics that hot air rises. So they built homes with high ceilings and put small vents or windows way up high, near the roof. As the house warmed up during the day, the hottest air would rise and escape through these top vents, and this movement would pull cooler, denser air in through the windows and doors down below. This created a constant, silent and totally passive air circulating system. In places like Spain and Sicily, they had these incredible structures called wind catchers, or badgers. As you can see, these are towers on the roof that are designed to catch the wind and funnel it down into the building. Some of the most advanced ones would even pass the air over an underground water channel to cool it down even more before it reached the living spaces. It's an amazing piece of engineering. But the most important part of their strategy was timing. This is the part we've really forgotten. They would throw open all the windows and doors in the cool early morning to let the cool night air flood the house. Then, just as the sun started to get hot, they would seal the house up completely. Shutters down, windows closed, trapping all that cool air inside. They treated their house like a thermos. They'd only open it up again in the late evening, once the temperature outside was cooler than the temperature inside, to let out all the heat from the day. They were basically choreographing a dance with the daily temperature cycle. The modern takeaway. You can actually turn your home into a passive ventilation system using these same ideas. If you have a 2-story house, try opening the windows on the lower level, on the shady side, and opening windows on the top floor. This creates that same chimney effect, pulling cool air in and pushing hot air out. And at night, use a fan in an upstairs window facing out to exhaust the hot air. which will help draw cooler night air in from downstairs. And definitely try the medieval window schedule. Get a thermometer and be strategic. When it's cooler outside, open everything up. The second it gets hotter outside, seal your house like a tomb. It's a simple trick that our ancestors understood perfectly. The original air conditioner. This is where things get really amazing. Long before we had compressors and refrigerants, people mastered a type of cooling that is so simple, it feels like magic. It's based on a basic law of physics. When water evaporates, it makes things around it colder. For every gram of water that evaporates, it removes a surprising amount of heat. They weaponized this idea. First, they used porous clay pots. In Spain, they called them botijos. Because the clay is unglazed and porous, a tiny bit of water constantly seeps to the outside surface. The hot, dry air makes this water evaporate, and in doing so, it pulls heat away from the pot, making the water inside much cooler. Wow! This can actually drop the water temperature by as much as 20 degrees Fahrenheit, turning a simple clay pot into a silent, electricity-free refrigerator. The second method was for personal cooling, especially on those hot, sticky nights. While we toss and turn on mattresses that trap our body heat, they had a much better system. They would take a linen sheet, soak it in cool water, and wring it out so it was just damp. Then they'd sleep with this damp sheet draped over them. As they slept, their body heat would make the water in the sheet slowly evaporate. This process pulled heat directly away from their skin, giving them hours of steady, gentle cooling. It was basically a personal, wearable swamp cooler. While we spend a fortune on cooling mattress toppers, they got better results with just a bucket of water and a piece of cloth. The modern takeaway. This is something you can try tonight. It's so easy. You can create your own simple evaporative cooler by hanging a damp sheet in front of an open window or a fan. The air blows through it, gets cooled by the evaporation, and then blows onto you. Or, for a more targeted breeze, put a shallow pan of ice water in front of a small fan. And you should absolutely try the damp sheet trick for sleeping. Just make sure it's damp, not soaking wet. The effect is immediate and really powerful. It's incredible to think we pay for complex machines to do what our ancestors did with just a bucket. So we've seen how medieval people mastered evaporative cooling. But what if we could take those same principles and supercharge them? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do next. If you like this video, don't forget to support the channel by leaving your like and subscribing to it. Build your own ice radiator. Alright, so we've talked about how medieval people mastered evaporative cooling and thermal mass. But here's where we can take their principles and supercharge them with a simple, modern twist. I'm going to show you how to build what I call a medieval ice radiator. It uses the same physics they understood, but amplified. This isn't just another fan blowing over ice setup. This is a two-stage cooling system that can genuinely cool your space when your expensive AC fails. And it costs under $50 to build with stuff you can get at any hardware store. Here's how medieval cooling science works in this design. First, room air gets pre-cooled by passing around ice water, just like air moving through those cool stone cellars. Then, it gets super chilled by passing through a small radiator that's been frozen by circulating ice water through it. It's like combining a medieval cold room with a wind catcher system. What you need: a 5-gallon bucket with lid, small 12V computer fan, smaller automotive radiator, 12V water pump, some plastic tubing and PVC couplers, ice and cold water. Here's how to build it. First, cut 4 to 5 holes around the sides of your bucket, about 2 inches from the bottom. These are your air intake ports, just like the wind catchers medieval builders used to funnel air into their cooling systems. Insert PVC couplers into these holes so air can flow in smoothly. Next, cut a hole in the lid for your fan and mount it facing down to pull air through the system. This creates the same suction effect as those medieval tower ventilation systems. Here's where it gets clever. Mount your small radiator inside the bucket, suspended above the water level. Connect your water pump to circulate the ice water from the bottom of the bucket through the radiator and back down. The radiator becomes ice cold within seconds. How it works. When you turn on the fan, room air gets sucked in through the side holes, gets pre-cooled by moving around the ice water at the bottom. Medieval evaporative cooling then gets super chilled when it's forced through the ice-cold radiator, enhanced heat exchange, and finally gets blown out as freezing air. Testing the results. Let me show you exactly how well this works. I'm measuring the ambient air temperature here, 40 degrees Celsius. That's over 100 Fahrenheit. Now, let me check the air coming out of our medieval ice radiator. 20 degrees Celsius. That's a 20-degree drop. We just turned scorching hot air into comfortable room temperature air. To put that in perspective, we went from unbearably hot to perfectly comfortable, using principles that medieval people would totally understand. This isn't just impressive for a DIY project. This is genuinely useful. Cooling that can make a real difference during a heatwave or power outage. The best part, it runs on about 20 watts of power, less than a single light bulb. Your AC unit uses 50 times more electricity. With a half gallon of ice water, this thing will run for 3 to 4 hours, keeping a small room significantly cooler. The medieval connection. This design combines three principles they mastered. Thermal mass. The ice water acts like those thick stone walls. Evaporative cooling, air moving over water. And strategic airflow. The fan creates the same effect as their wind catcher towers. We're just using modern materials to make their ancient physics work even better. The modern takeaway. This isn't just a cool weekend project. In a power outage, when your AC is dead, this little system could keep you comfortable for days, as long as you have access to ice. It's a perfect backup cooling system that combines medieval wisdom with modern efficiency. Plus, you'll actually understand how it works, which is more than most people can say about the complex refrigeration system in their wall unit. So now you know how to build your own medieval-inspired cooling system. But there's another piece of the puzzle that's just as important. What you wear while you're staying cool. The summer wardrobe. We think of technology as being circuits and code, but for most of history, one of the most advanced technologies was fabric. What you wore wasn't just about fashion, it was a matter of survival. And in the summer, there was one fabric that was king: linen. Today, you might grab a cotton t-shirt, or worse, a synthetic shirt made of polyester. In the intense heat of a medieval summer, those would be terrible choices. Cotton absorbs sweat, but it dries really slowly, so it just ends up sticking to you like a hot, wet towel, blocking any airflow. Polyester is even worse. It's basically plastic and doesn't breathe at all. Medieval people knew better. Linen, which comes from the flax plant, is like a miracle of natural engineering. Its fibres are hollow, so it's super breathable. And while it absorbs moisture really well, it also releases it into the air very quickly. So it's constantly wicking sweat off your skin and using it to cool you down through evaporation. It never feels sticky or damp. The style of the clothing was also important. As you can see in old drawings, their clothes were loose and flowing. This creates a kind of bellows effect. Every time you move, the fabric billows out and pumps air around your body, creating your own personal ventilation system. And when it was really hot, they'd just wear fewer layers, often just a single, loose-fitting linen shirt. And what about colour? They knew that light colours reflect the sun's heat, while dark colours absorb it. So in the summer, they wore lighter shades. They were wearing functional cooling systems, not just clothes. The modern takeaway. It's time to rethink your summer wardrobe. Ditch the polyester and try natural fibres, especially linen. It might cost a little more, but in the heat, it performs so much better. Look for loose-fitting clothes that let air move around your body, and on really hot, sunny days, wearing light colours can make a real difference. A simple linen shirt is a piece of technology that's been perfected over thousands of years. It's time we started appreciating it again. Hacking time itself. Of all their strategies, this one might be the most mind-blowing, because it's the most different from our modern lives. They didn't just manage their houses and their clothes to beat the heat. They managed time itself. They understood that the day has a rhythm set by the sun, and the smartest thing to do is work with it, not against it. We live by the clock. The 9-to-5 workday is a totally artificial thing that was invented for factories. A medieval farmer would think our schedule is completely insane. Why would anyone do hard work during the hottest part of the day? Their workday was flexible. They would get up before the sun at maybe 4 or 5 in the morning to do all their hard labour in the cool morning air. Then, when the sun got high and punishing, around 10 or 11 a.m., they would just stop, and this wasn't a short lunch break. This was a complete shutdown that could last for hours. This was the original siesta. They'd go inside their cool stone house, rest in the shade, or even go bathe in a cool stream. They would eat, rest and sleep. They were letting the worst of the heat pass while they conserved their energy. Then, as the day started to cool off, they'd go back out and work until sunset. This wasn't laziness, it was incredibly intelligent. It was a deep understanding of how to manage energy. The midday nap wasn't a luxury, it was a critical part of their work strategy. But what is fascinating is how we've come to look down on this, seeing it as unproductive. But who's being smarter, the person who works with their environment, or the person who has to blast the AC just to work in an office, fighting against nature at a huge cost? The modern takeaway. I know this is a tough one to do if you have a rigid 9-to-5 job, but the principle is still valid. Listen to your body and the weather. If you have any flexibility, try shifting your hours. Start earlier and take a longer break in the middle of the day. On your days off, really embrace this schedule. Do your yard work or run your errands in the morning. Spend the hot afternoon hours inside, resting or reading. You'll find you have so much more energy and feel way more comfortable than if you just try to power through the heat. Our bodies are still wired to this ancient solar clock. The siesta isn't an outdated tradition. It's a biohack we've forgotten. So as you can see, these 5 principles, thermal mass, ventilation, evaporative cooling, smart fabrics, and hacking time, are more than just history lessons. They show how incredibly resilient and ingenious people were. Our medieval ancestors weren't primitive, they were practical geniuses. If you found this journey into the past interesting, and you think this old knowledge is becoming more and more important for our world today, please give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten wisdom. And I really want to hear from you. What are your own low-tech DIY ways to beat the heat? Share your ideas in the comments below. Let's build a whole library of these essential skills together. So what's the big takeaway here? We started with the image of a power outage, a symbol of how fragile our modern world can be. We end with the image of a stone house, staying cool and quiet in the sun, a symbol of ancient resilience. We've tricked ourselves into thinking that progress only moves in one direction. We look at our complex, power-hungry gadgets and feel superior to the simple solutions of the past. But we're confusing complexity with being better. We've built a system that's powerful, for sure, but also incredibly brittle. It depends on a constant flow of cheap energy. The moment one piece of that system fails, the whole thing is at risk. Our ancestors built their lives on something different. Their systems were passive and worked in harmony with the world around them. Their air conditioner was the wind. Their refrigerator was a clay pot. Their thermostat was the rising and setting of the sun. This isn't about telling everyone to abandon modern technology. It's a call to be humble and to recognize that our ancestors knew some things that we've lost. It's an invitation to blend the best of the old with the best of the new. By understanding their principles, we can design smarter buildings, reduce our reliance on AC, and live healthier, more sustainable lives. This knowledge isn't just history. In a world that feels more and more uncertain, it's a blueprint for a more resilient future. It's empowering. It frees us from being totally dependent on fragile systems and reconnects us to the physical world. The wisdom is still there, waiting in the stones of old buildings and in the memory of the afternoon nap. We just have to be smart enough to remember it.